Warning: the following content may contain elements that are not suitable for some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
See you there behind the veil. Truth and lies, they start to pale. You think your words can hide the sin, but I can see what burns within. Come closer now, don't turn away. I've got something dark to say. Fire spreads with every breath, dancing close to living death. Oh, the darkness calls your name. Nothing stays the same. You're blowing smoke into the night, trying to hide from burning light. I see through every twisted game. You're blowing smoke, but I remain. The truth will rise, the lies will show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Blowing Smoke Podcast with Kimiko Kusanagi. The podcast where we dive deep into the haze of pop culture, movies, and all things that go bump in the night. I'm your host, Kimiko, coming to you from the sunny, but sometimes spooky, streets of Phoenix, Arizona, and it's March 2026. So if you're like me, you're already knee-deep into this year's horror releases, wondering what's next for the genre that never dies. Today we're talking about the horror movie landscape of 2026. And we got some killer flicks dropping already and have dropped already. And there's a ton more on the horizon. And I'll break down the hits so far, spotlight upcoming must-sees, and speculate on where horror is heading. Think more sequels, fresh twists on classics, and maybe even some AI nightmares creeping in. So grab your popcorn, dim the lights, and light up and listen in. So horror hits of early 2026 and what we've seen so far. 2026 kicked off with a bang in the horror world. January alone felt like a mini festival of frights. Let's start with the big ones. 28 years later, The Bone Temple, which dropped on January 16th, directed by Nia DaCosta. This sequel to the 2025 hit picks up with Ralph Fiennes as a haunted doctor in a post-apocalyptic world overrun by the infected. It's got that gritty, fast zombie vibe from the original 28 Days Later, but with richer storytelling. Think Annihilation-level weirdness from Alec Garland's script. Critics are raving and calling it a reanimation of the zombie subgenre, and it's already sitting at 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. 5 box office wise, it's crushing it, proving zombies aren't dead yet. Then there's Send Help, which came out on January 30th, and that's Sam Raimi's latest thriller, starring Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien as crash survivors on a deserted island, and it's got that classic Raimi flair. Tense survival horror with a clash of psychological twists. Early reviews praise it at about a 93% fresh standout, blending isolation dread with interpersonal drama. If you loved Evil Dead, this feels like a spiritual cousin, minus the demons. February brought us Primate, a killer chimpanzee story that's surprisingly emotional. It's about a family pet gone wrong, tapping into real-world fears of animal intelligence. At 78% on Rotten Tomatoes, it's not perfect, but it's got some heart and teeth. And don't sleep on We Bury the Dead or Whistle, both solid entries with 88% and 62% ratings respectively. Whistle is more diversive, but its sound design scares are just chef kiss. Overall, early 2026 horror is leaning into character-driven stories over jump scare spam, and we've seen a mixture of franchise extensions and originals, with themes like survival trauma and the unknown bubbling up. But man, the box office is telling. So horror is booming and continuing the record-breaking streak from 2025. Uh, Iron Lung, directed by YouTuber Markiplier, is a surprise hit. Over 21 million on a tiny budget, showing how online creators are shaking up the genre. Huh. What do I think? These films are proving horror isn't just about gore. It's about reflecting our anxieties. Zombies for societal collapse, island survival for isolation in a post-pandemic world. Solid start to the year. Upcoming scares. The must-watch horror movies of 2026. Now, let's look ahead. And 2026 is stacked with sequels, reboots, and originals that could redefine the genre. March is looking particularly bloody. First up, Scream 7 on February 27th. Wait, technically late February, but whatever, close enough. Ghostface is back, and after the meta madness of the last few, this one promises more Woodsboro chaos. Trailers tease familiar faces and new victims. And with the franchise's history, expect self-aware slasher fun. March 6th brings The Bride. Maggie Gyllenhaal's take on Frankenstein's Bride, starring Christian Bale and Jessie Buckley, and it's a reimagining with gothic vibes, focusing on creation, identity, and romance gone wrong. Early buzz says it's electrifying, pun intended, and could be an award contender in horror. Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, drops March 20th, bringing back Samara Weaving's Grace for more deadly games with that twisted family. If the first was a riot, the sequel amps up the hide and seek horror with bigger stakes. They Will Kill You on March 27th looks like a home invasion thriller with a serial killer twist. And April, Faces of Death remake on the 10th, infamous for its mockumentary style. And Lee Cronin's The Mummy on the 17th, waking up ancient evils with modern Blumhouse polish. And May has Hokum, an indie darling from A24. Vibes with Obsession, delving into stalker psychological horror. Summer and fall get wild with The Strangers Chapter 3 in February. Wait, no, that's shifting to summer spots. Cold Storage, expansions, and big ones like Resident Evil Reboot by Zach Krieger on September 18th. Weapons was a game changer, and this could make zombies scary again. And don't forget Werewolf by Robert Eggers, Werewolves in Medieval Times, sounding atmospheric as hell. Evil Dead Burn, Scary Movie 6, Terrifier 4, for the gorehounds, and originals like Dolly, Undertone, Body Cam, Alien, Romulus 2, and the Amityville Horror reboot. That is a lineup. From slashers to sci-fi horror, 2026 is serving variety. If I had to pick my most anticipated, it'd be The Bride, for the fresh spin on a classic. The Resident Evil because Krieger's track record is gold. Let's take a break.
In a world that never logs off, one store dares you to bleed code. T-shirts that pulse like corrupted data. Every thread is a virus. Every print is a wound. Hoodies stitched with encrypted screams. Become the glitch. Hats that crown the last human signal. Log in before the void logs you.
Okay, we're back. So, trends in horror. Where is this genre heading? What's driving horror in 2026, and where is it going? First, the sequel and reboot boom is undeniable. Franchises like Scream, Strangers, and Evil Dead are cash cows, and they're evolving, less formulaic, more character focused. And we're seeing directors like Krieger and Eggers bring prestige to reboots, blending art house with mainstream scares. The big trend, psychological horror tied to trauma and identity. Think Severance styled mindbenders where the monster is internal. Films like Obsession and Psycho Killer lean into this, reflecting real world mental health convos. Grief horror is sticking around too, processing less through supernatural lenses. AI and tech horror, expect more. With AI in everything, movies exploring digital dread or sentient machines, could explode. Slashers are resurging, but smarter, like Scream, or grounded, like in a violent nature too. Interestingly, aquatic monsters are on the rise. Sharks, sea creatures, overtaking land based on, whatever plots. Maybe climate anxiety. And the YouTuber trend Markiplier's Iron Lung success shows creators crossing over and bringing fresh, low budget energy. So, where is it heading? More diverse voices. Women directors like Da Costa and Gyllenhaal domineering global influences too, with Asian horror rising. By 2027, I kind of predict the hybrid of horrors, blending genres like rom-coms and fucking scares, or echo horror tackling real crisis. Horror isn't dying, it's just mutating and evolving. So, 2026 could be the year horror finally goes fully prestige. Oscars for The Bride, bold but possible. Underrated pick Hokum for indie chills, overhyped. Maybe Scream 7 franchise fatigue is real. Predictions, Resident Evil breaks box office records. And we'll see more grief. All AI crossovers. And personally, I'm stoked for werewolf revivals. Eggers would make Werewolf a classic. What do you think? Well, that's a wrap on today's episode, and thank you for tuning into the Blowing Smoke podcast with Kimiko Kusanagi. And remember, in horror, the end is just the beginning. Next time, we'll dissect something, maybe sci-fi crossovers. I don't know. You stay creepy like Kimiko Kusanagi, okay? Bye!
I trusted you with all my heart, tore my world apart, but from the ashes I have grown. Now I claim what's mine. The smoke will clear, I'm still here.
It's just a couple of baby lines. God.